Hey everyone, this is Jeff Risdon from the Detroit Lions podcast and Lions Wire, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Lions tight end ring. So, let's do this. All right, pretty straightforward at the top of the tight ends. You got Sam Laporta, as in the greatest rookie tight end ever, Sam Laporta. And believe it or not, I do think he can even excel beyond what he did last year. I think he can get 1,000 yards this year. I think the 10 touchdowns is replicable based on the red zone usage. And from what I saw over in Allen Park during the spring, whether it's OTAs or minicamp, his utilization, he can play some wide receiver, and you might see him play some slot wide receiver. You might see him get some outside wide receiver looks if the matchup is advantageous. He is a true chess piece, and Ben Johnson knows what he's got. Jared Goff knows what he's got. He could very well lead the Lions in receptions this year, and that's saying something with Amon-Ra St. Brown already on the roster. Odds would be that Amon-Ra winds up getting the more catches and more yards, but Laporta's going to push him for that. He's got that much talent and that much ability and that much versatility. So no concerns at all at the top. Next in line. Well, pretty easy to see who's number 2. That's Brock Wright. After the Lions paid him when he was courted by the 49ers to, free agent contract, and the Lions matched it. It was an unusual move. It was an unexpected move from my perspective. I thought they would wind up letting him go. It shows how much they value him as a versatile all-around tight end. He can line up in line. He can flex out if you need him to. He might get some fullback looks or H-back looks. We'll see on that. So he's going to do some things, and his ability to leak out after throwing an initial block is probably his best attribute, and the Lions will use that. So pretty set at the top too. After that, gets a little interesting. Right now, and this, I got to brush this. This is my take. This isn't necessarily what the team sees or how the team sees it, but this is how I see it after the spring workouts, and we're about a month out from training camp kicking off. But how I see it, I think Parker Hesse, number 43, is currently the number 3 tight end. Not exactly a household name, not exactly a returning player. This is a guy that they picked up, off the street. He looks good. And so that is the fact that he can chip and release, much like we just talked about with Brock Wright, and get out in the open. He has very reliable hands. He understands how to present himself as a big target on comeback routes, which I think is something that definitely stands out in his favor. He's good on special teams. Worked a lot on the kickoff and kick return units, and I think that's something that's very important for a number 3 tight end. Depth players have to play on special teams. He has an understanding of how to do that. He's done it in the past. He's a guy that's the arrow is pointing up. Not the most athletic guy. In fact, he is the least athletic of the remaining players we're going to talk about here. But he's functional, and he understands what he is. I think that that's an important trait. So I'm bullish on what Parker Hesse offers. Again, I don't know if the team sees it that way. I like what I've seen so far. And he has elevated himself above guys like Sean McCune and Sheen Zylstra. Now, Zylstra, probably my guess would be that the Lions see him right now as the number 3 because of his receiving ability. He's basically an effectively big wide receiver. He lines up in the slot. He doesn't do a lot in line. So he's a little bit limited there. Wasn't as demonstrative or as big of a standout on special teams as McCune or Hesse for that matter. McCune is a guy, Michigan man, has some NFL experience. You really do a lot. Sort of blended in during the spring. We'll see in the summer if he gets a chance to do a little bit more. A lot of it was the fact that he was dealing with having Nate Sudfeld as a quarterback throwing to him. Not an indictment on Sudfeld as much as it is that they don't do that much. They didn't get a lot of reps with that squad, the third team offense. So, kind of tough to stand out in that if you're not doing a lot on special teams. And he didn't do a lot on special teams. So again, it's hard because when you're not getting the top reps, it's tough to stand out. So I would say that Zylstra probably has the leg up because he's a more accomplished receiver, better athlete, moves very well out in space, has that long stride. And in one day of it was minicamp. He looked good in the red zone in doing drills there, and that's an important facet of what playing tight end is, with Sam Laporta getting all those touchdowns last year, being a prime red zone target. If he, for some reason, were to go out, I think you can see Zylstra easily plug into that. So he's probably got that feather in his cap ahead of McCune. And then, there's James Mitchell. And right now, he, to me, is at the bottom of the depth chart. Again, that's just to me. Some of that is the fact that he's a blocking tight end. And you don't get a lot of blocking when you're not in full pads. We haven't really seen him be able to excel at what he's probably best at of this group, which is inline blocking and run blocking. And that's something that we will see more of in training camp and definitely in the preseason. That's where he's going to have to shine, because right now he is clearly behind all these other guys as a receiving entity, whether it's chipping and releasing, whether it's getting out. The hands just aren't there, man. And he is very, very slow relative to everybody. So there's just not a lot of twitch there. I talked about it in one of the last videos that we did here. Nolan Bianchi from Detroit News was like, is that Michael Roberts' slower cousin? There's just not a lot of twitch there, not a lot of functional athleticism. And it's sad because, when he was at Virginia Tech, you saw some of that, whether it was a knee injury or he's gained a little bit of bulk since then. It's just not there for him. So he's got to have a strong training camp to make this team. And we'll see. Again, they haven't been able to block yet, and that's probably where he's at his best. Now, the other question is, do the Lions keep 3 or do they keep 4? That's a good question. That would be taking away from a safety or a wide receiver, running back maybe, and don't know how they're going to play that out. Keep in mind, they're not carrying a fullback. It could be Rodrigo. I hope it's Rodrigo. That would be great. A guy who can play on offense and defense. That saves a lot of roster turmoil. Not that Rodrigo is in any roster danger. He's clearly making the team. But if he can serve that purpose, that might take away from the need to keep, an extra wide receiver or an extra running back. And that would be where a fourth tight end who can thrive on special teams and serve as a sort of a backup H-back would fit in. Are they going to do that? We'll find out later this summer. But right now, that's where I see the tight ends for the Detroit Lions. And we'll come back and do a couple more of these videos. We'll talk about the linebackers with Rodrigo. And also the defensive backfield, because I think there's a lot of sorting out to be done there yet. But until then, thanks for tuning in.